Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS value plays. Of course, for the Tour Championship, our Super Bowl of the Tour schedule. Gonna go through the bottom end of the pricing this week and bring you 3 salary saving options that you can get to open up some salary, spend up for an extra stud or two, and of course, get some much needed ownership leverage in those large field GPPs. I'll be heading up to Atlanta about an hour or two after this goes live, so super stoked to be able to see the action in person, but also really excited to get after some of the large field contests. We have quite a decent selection both over there on Draftkings and on FanDuel, so best to take advantage of it this sort of golf tournament, especially before a 2-3 week break. So let's get after it. Let's go through the bottom end of the board and bring you a diamond in the rough or two. With the staggered start this week, we get quite a few elite tier options here in the 6 and even 5K range that otherwise would be ludicrous to see at this kind of price tag. And with the 3 value plays I'm getting to, that certainly fits the description. All 3 are borderline elite tier players, and this strong of a field would normally be 9, sometimes even 10K kind of golfers. And for us to be getting them at this sort of, price tag is just ridiculous, like I said. So first off, Collin Morikawa at $7,700. I know he's only starting at -1, which is less attractive, right, than the guys around him starting at -3, like a Keegan. I mean, even Tom Kim, Corey Connors, or a Finau at -2 are going to get a lot of clicks from the casuals. Yet if you look at recent form metrics, really look at any sort of stat category, Morikawa's lapping the field here. So let's look at the last 12 measured rounds, where you can see Collin Morikawa is gaining across all 4 categories. The only other player in this range that can say that is a Corey Connors, of course, who is starting 1 stroke ahead of a Collin Morikawa. But in terms of actual shots gained per round, Morikawa has been the better player, and based on some of the early ownership projections I'm looking at, it looks like Connors may actually end up higher owned, right, than Morikawa, perhaps because of that 1-stroke advantage. But I would definitely turn your attention, right, to these just elite tier players that are sometimes $3,000 too cheap. With the staggered start, you're going to have players starting with more points than others, but it's exactly that. It's just a starting point, right? Kind of like a Sunday showdown slate where we're going out there. You want to take some of the chalk up top that holds their position, but inevitably, right, we have the guys that are chasers that move up into that top 5, top 10 that you almost certainly have to take home the large field contest. It's going to be the same thing this week, except on steroids, right? Not only do you only have 18 holes to go out there and improve your mark, you have 72 holes, right? No cut event to go out there and move up the board. So for somebody like Morikawa that has been so good of late, that has at least one good year here, you can see he finished in 6th place back there 3 years ago. Maybe not the best finishes the last 2 years, but does fit the kind of mold I'm looking for in a golfer. This is a ball striking test that's all about keeping yourself in play off the tee and then attacking pin locations from the short stuff. But when Morikawa has his best game, that is exactly the kind of golfer that he is. So at $7,700, I do think he's at least worth some consideration this week, even though the track record maybe isn't as good as some of the other guys around him, right? Like Tony Finau, a slightly better track record, I would say. But fortunately for Morikawa's playing the better golf, right, over the last month or so, is one that I would personally trust a little bit more. Next up, we've got ourselves Tyrell Hun, another player that is just egregiously priced in this sort of field at $6,900, starting at even par. That's hopefully going to keep his ownership in check, right? Guys like Morikawa, Hun, we're going to talk up Sam Burns here in a few minutes. It's not like they're going to be low owned, right? There's only 30 players in the field. Your average ownership this week is going to be 20%. It's just I think they should, we're going to be lower owned than they probably should be. So Tyrell Hun of late not playing his best golf. So I think this is why we might get a slightly lower owned version of him than he should be. He's still gaining off the tee and with the putter, but has not been very good with the irons. If you zoom out, right, you start to see a better version of Hun. In fact, gains across all 4 categories if we zoom out to the last 36 rounds. And that's the real Hun that we're buying in on, right? The one that in, elite tier events, elevated events, events early in the year, was finishing top 5 almost every single time. So at $6,900, I think it's just an absolute steal. And by taking a Tyrell Hun or a Sam Burns that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, right, it opens up so much salary towards the top end of the board that you can take an extra guy starting at like -4, -5 or better, right? You can fit in maybe a $13,000 Scotty Scheffler or a Rory McIlroy. It's hard to make those sort of lineups work unless you take a shot, right, on one of the players at the bottom of the board. And the ones that I prefer getting to are the elite tier players, the guys that if you were playing without starting strokes would be 9K golfers in this sort of field. So love Morikawa, love Tyrell Hun just in terms of total upside. It does have another good start here. So kind of like Morikawa, finished in the top 10 there 3 years ago. The only time he's played at Eastlake over the last 5 years. Very surprising for Hun, right, that he hasn't made it to the top 30 more often. But hopefully that's a sign of things to come, and he can go out there. It's not going to win the event, right? Morikawa is probably not going to win the event, right? Starting 9 strokes back of a Scotty Scheffler. But if they can get into the top 10, right, starting with next to no starting strokes, that's going to be an optimal performance at this kind of price tag. And our last play we'll get to here in a second, I'll just remind you, check out the Patreon if you want all my value plays. There are a lot of guys we can't talk up here in all the content that I'm playing it towards the bottom end of the board. If we're going to save up, spend up for a few studs this week, which you're going to have to do to get the optimal lineup, but you're going to have to spend down here sometimes 2, even 3 times to make that sort of lineup work. So it's not just a Morikawa, it's not just a Hun that I'm playing or Sam Burns. There are plenty of other options that we're taking. Of course, my ownership projections are also posted on my Patreon page. Everything that you see blacked out on here, including my modeling, projections for each player as they update throughout the week, are all posted on there. So if you've been wondering how to get direct access to all of my plays, that is exactly how you can do so. And if you do it, helps support the channel too, right? So it's a way to help me out, a way to help your process out at the same time, and overall extremely useful. It's what I use to do my process, and if I can make it work week to week, I'm able to go out there, have solid results. You should be able to do that same thing. So lastly, we've got Sam Burns down here, $6,100, and he's the last elite tier option that I think you should consider, at least for this video, because he's another just high upside scoring kind of player, right? He would be in the 8K range, right, if this was a regular non-staggered start kind of event. He's actually played okay here over the years. You can see T18 2 years ago, that was starting from the back of the pack. T24 last year wasn't great, but overall, he's made a lot of birdies. And in fact, when he finished T18, he was nearly an optimal performer back there 2 years ago. And on Bermuda Grass, which is the surface of the week, right, he can go out there and get nuclear hot, right? That's where Sam Burns wins golf tournaments. And Sam Burns, unlike some of the other players in this range, right, is capable of actually winning this golf tournament without strokes. Now, like a Griot, Straka, Shank, Taylor, obviously a Hun and a Spieth could win this without strokes too. But, it's these elite tier high upside players that are capable of going out there and shooting 15 to 20 under par here. And if we can get a nuclear hot putter for Sam Burns, which happens quite a bit for the guy, right? He's gaining 2/3 of a stroke per round on Bermuda Grass per round. That is, I believe, the best of anyone in the field. Yeah, it's the best of anyone in the field. So best putter on this surface, and then can get really hot off the tee and with the approach play. Not so consistent in those two categories, but can definitely get hot. And of late, right, we've been tracking this with Sam Burns, right? We've talked him up a few times over this last month, and it's paid off, right? Look at this, gaining on approach. He's been okay off the tee, right? We need him to be a little bit better at Eastlake if he's going to go out there and actually find that success. But gaining with the approach play, gaining with the putter, doing Sam Burns type of things, and now we get him back on bent grass. Sorry, I should say Bermuda grass. Off of bent grass from the last few golf tournaments. Back on Bermuda, which is a lot more familiar, right, for Sam Burns. So I like our chances here. We call him Bermuda Burns for a reason. It's $6,100. It's not really so much what it gets you right here with Sam Burns. It's what it buys you up top, right? Same thing with a Tyrell Hun or a Collin Morikawa, right? By taking these guys that are starting towards the bottom end of the board, I know we're not getting all those flashy placement points that everyone wants when the golf tournament locks, but by the end of the week, they might not mean much, right? All of those points that you're getting for birdies over those 72 holes are going to far outweigh the impact of the points you're getting for 10th through 15th place. That's all for the value plays this week. Before you're hopping out of here, smash that like button for me. And also, let me know in the comments your top value play, $8,000 and below on DraftKings. It can be a stud tier option like we're taking, or maybe a little bit of a sleeper that you think goes out there, pops at low ownership, and gets the job done that way. Either way, I appreciate all the support here on the channel, guys. Definitely keep an eye out for the rest of the content this week, of course, which will be spearheaded by our weekly live stream Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. By then, I'll be up in Atlanta, have a good idea on conditions, a course report and whatnot, and be ready to report back to you guys with all of that information. So look forward to that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss when I'm going live there on Wednesday, and bring any questions that you've got, right? We'll get through the slate, we'll go through the weather, some of the overall strategy notes, and then be diving directly into all of your questions to go out there and hopefully get ready to crush it this week. Looking forward to it. Going to be super exciting to be out there at East Lake in person and to give you guys that boots on the ground info. But until then, best of luck with those lineups, any outright bets that you're going with, and let's get this cash.